The queen's silence hung in the air like a thick fog, pressing down on the soldier. He stood still, his bare skin exposed to the alien environment, feeling the weight of the moment. He had faced combat, had stood against terrifying enemies, and had endured pain, but none of that compared to the vulnerability he felt now. The absence of his armor made him feel like a child, naked and defenseless before a creature far beyond his understanding. The queen's golden eyes never left him. They were like two bright suns, intense and unwavering. Her gaze wasn't just cold and calculating. It was curious, as if she were studying an entirely new species, one that she had never encountered before. Her eyes seemed to look deeper than his body, past his muscles and bone, seeing into his very soul. The soldier wanted to look away, but he couldn't. Something in the way she observed him held him in place. He couldn't read her expression, but he could feel the weight of her assessment pressing down on him. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. His throat dried. His palms began to sweat, and he fought to keep his composure. The tension between them was almost unbearable. Finally, after what felt like hours, the queen spoke. "You have a remarkable restraint, human," she said, her voice a mixture of praise and intrigue. Most would tremble or falter when faced with such exposure. But you, she paused, as if trying to find the right words. You stand firm. The soldier's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure whether she was complimenting him or simply stating a fact, but he nodded slightly, trying to show his respect. "Thank you, my queen." She tilted her head slightly, studying him more closely now. "I ordered you to remove your armor because I wanted to see the man beneath it. Not the soldier, not the weapon, but the human." Her voice softened, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "I have always been curious about humans. You are unpredictable, fierce, yet fragile. You defy all logic, and yet you survive." The soldier's mind raced. He had heard rumors of the queen's fascination with humans, but he had never truly understood why. He was just one soldier among many, nothing special. Yet here he was, standing in front of her with nothing but his skin and the weight of her words hanging over him. "Do you understand now?" she asked, her voice breaking through his thoughts. "Why I have chosen you?" The soldier didn't know how to answer. He wasn't sure why she had chosen him out of all the humans in the galaxy. He wasn't the strongest or the bravest or the most skilled. But there was something in the queen's eyes that told him she wasn't looking for any of that. She was looking for something deeper. "I do not," he replied honestly, his voice steady despite the confusion swirling inside him. The queen's smile was faint but knowing. "You will," she said, almost cryptically. "But first, you must face the challenge I present. Not a challenge of strength, but of your mind, of your heart." The soldier's chest tightened. This was no ordinary mission. He wasn't just here to fight or protect. The queen had something else in mind, and he was about to discover just what that was. The soldier's heart raced as the queen's words echoed in his mind. A challenge of your mind, of your heart. What did she mean? He had expected combat, a fight, something that would require his strength, his training. But this was different. The queen had already stripped him of his armor, and now she was offering him a challenge that went far beyond anything he had ever prepared for. Her golden eyes were still fixed on him, but now they softened just a little. She rose from her throne with the grace of a predator in the wild, moving toward him with deliberate steps. Her presence, though calming in its beauty, was powerful and impossible to ignore. The soldier found himself standing taller, his posture stiffening as he waited for whatever would come next. "You are not the first human to visit my planet," the queen began, her voice low but commanding. "Many have come before you, seeking power, wealth, or knowledge, but all have been predictable." She smiled, but there was no humor in it. "None of them have truly understood what it means to be human." The soldier took a step forward, eager for more answers. "What do you mean, my queen?" The queen's expression grew more serious as she regarded him. "Your species is different. Humans are not like the other races I've encountered. You are unpredictable. You do not rely solely on brute force, nor do you solely trust in your minds. You blend both, strength and intelligence, passion and reason, and it is that mixture that makes you both dangerous and fascinating. The soldier felt a flicker of pride at her words, but his unease only grew. What did she expect from him? He wasn't a leader or a scientist. He was just a soldier. I am testing you, she continued, her voice turning colder, more authoritative. Not because I doubt your strength, but because I need to know if you are worthy of something greater than you realize. The soldier's brow furrowed. Worthy of what? The queen's gaze held a secret, a weight the soldier couldn't yet comprehend. I need a representative for humanity. Someone who can stand for your people, not just as a fighter, but as someone who can make decisions, navigate complex negotiations, and act with wisdom. Earth's future is on the line, and I believe you. Yes, you may be the one to lead humanity into a new era. The words hit him like a hammer. He had never imagined this kind of responsibility. He had always thought of himself as just a cog in the machine, a soldier sent to follow orders. But now, the queen was asking him to become something more, a symbol of his entire species. His mind raced. Could he truly be the one to represent all of humanity? He wasn't a diplomat. He was a fighter, a warrior, but something about the queen's faith in him stirred a part of him he had long buried, a desire to prove himself, to show that humans were capable of more than just survival. I don't know if I'm the right person for that, he admitted, his voice hesitant. I'm just a soldier. I've never led anyone. The queen's gaze softened just a little. And that is exactly why I chose you. You are not like the others. You do not think of yourself as above others, and that humility is what will make you stronger than any leader I have known. She stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper now. But you must decide. Will you accept this challenge? Will you step forward as the true representative of your species? The soldier stood still, the weight of her words pressing down on him. For the first time, he saw the full depth of what the queen was asking. He wasn't just facing a test of strength or skill. He was facing a test of character. And humanity's future depended on his answer. The soldier stood in silence, his mind racing with the queen's words. The weight of her request pressed on him, and the realization of what was being asked of him began to sink in. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was now part of something far greater, something that could change the future of Earth forever. He could feel the queen's gaze on him, waiting, watching for his response. It was a quiet pressure, like the calm before a storm. The air in the room felt thick, charged with anticipation. I don't know what to say, the soldier finally admitted, his voice hoarse. This is more than I ever expected. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but the queen's piercing gaze held him in place, reminding him that his decision mattered far beyond this moment. The queen took a step closer to him, her eyes never leaving his face. The soldier's breath caught in his throat as she moved within inches of him. She was taller than he had imagined, her presence commanding the room without any effort. He could smell a faint, exotic fragrance, something floral and strange, the scent of her species. But it was more than that. It was the very essence of her being, her power, and it left him breathless. For the first time, he saw her fully, without the distance he had maintained before. She was not the cold, calculating monarch he had assumed. Her beauty was breathtaking. Striking features, sharp cheekbones, eyes that glimmered like gold. And yet, there was something vulnerable about her as well. She was not just a ruler, but a being who had carried the weight of her world for far too long. You are still unsure, she said softly, almost as if she understood the conflict inside him. But that is the challenge, to be uncertain and still move forward, to act even when the path is unclear. Her words struck a chord deep within him. He had always thought of courage as something you either had or you didn't, something you could measure by how well you fought or how strong you were. But now, standing here in front of her, He realized that courage was more than just strength. It was the ability to face the unknown and make a decision, even when you were unsure of the outcome. The queen continued, her voice gaining strength. I did not choose you for your physical strength, soldier. I chose you because of your humanity. You have fought and survived not just with weapons, but with your heart, your mind. These are the qualities that will make you a great representative for your people. The soldier swallowed hard, feeling a deep sense of responsibility growing inside him. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't sure if he could rise to the challenge. But looking into the queen's eyes, he realized that there was no turning back. If he walked away now, he would lose his chance to prove what humanity was truly capable of. I accept, he said, his voice steady, though his heart was pounding. I'll do it. I'll represent humanity. I'll prove that we are more than just warriors. The queen's lips curled into a faint smile, her eyes gleaming with approval. Then it is settled. She stepped back, allowing him a moment to absorb what had just happened. But remember this, soldier. You may stand alone in this mission. You may face impossible odds. But it is not the strength of your body that will make you succeed. It is the strength of your character. And that is what will make you worthy of this task. The soldier nodded, his chest swelling with a mixture of fear and pride. He had made his choice, and now the future of Earth rested on his shoulders. The soldier stood in the queen's chamber, his decision made, yet a storm brewed inside him. His mind was a whirlwind of doubt, swirling with questions and fears that threatened to overwhelm him. He had agreed to represent humanity, to carry the weight of his entire species into a new era. But now that the moment had passed, he realized just how much he had placed on the line. He wasn't a diplomat. He had never been trained for this. His life had been one of battles, of surviving through grit and strength. He was a soldier, not a leader. How could he, a simple soldier, be the one to guide humanity through such a crucial moment? The queen's words rang in his ears, her belief in him hanging like a heavy cloak. She had seen something in him, something he hadn't seen in himself. But how could he live up to her expectations? How could he face the entire galaxy, knowing that his every decision would have consequences far beyond anything he could imagine? The pressure was suffocating. He turned away from the queen, needing space to clear his head, but her presence remained, strong and constant. She had chosen him, and now he had no choice but to move forward. There was no going back. But as much as he wanted to feel confident, the fear kept creeping in. He remembered his time in battle, those moments when the adrenaline had taken over, when he had acted without hesitation, trusting his instincts. But this was different. There were no clear lines here, no enemy to fight, no orders to follow. This was about diplomacy, about standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and convincing them that humanity was worth saving, worth believing in. The soldier clenched his fists. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, no matter how overwhelming. But this was different. His every decision would affect the future of Earth, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for that responsibility. How can I do this? He whispered to himself, feeling the weight of the question like a lead anchor pulling him under. Because you are human, came the queen's calm voice from behind him. He hadn't realized she had followed him. He turned to face her and saw that she was watching him, her expression unreadable. What do you mean? He asked, his voice rough. How does being human make me fit for this? The queen's golden eyes studied him for a moment, and then she answered, her tone both gentle and firm. Because humans have something that no other species in the galaxy has. You have the ability to change. You adapt. You don't simply survive. You evolve. And that is why I believe in you. I know you can lead your people. You don't have to have all the answers now. Just trust in yourself, in your humanity, and move forward. Her words hit him like a jolt of electricity. He had always believed that strength was about fighting, about winning battles, but now he saw that strength could also come from vulnerability, from admitting that you didn't have all the answers and still choosing to move forward. The soldier straightened up, his chest filling with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. The Queen was right. He didn't need to be perfect, didn't need to have all the answers. What mattered was that he was willing to try. He was human, and that in itself was enough. "I understand," he said quietly, his voice steady now. "I will do this. I will fight for humanity's future." The Queen nodded, her eyes softening. "I knew you would." For the first time since entering the chamber, the soldier felt a flicker of hope. There was still so much ahead of him, so many challenges to face, but now he understood that the true strength of humanity wasn't in its weapons or its armies. It was in its willingness to rise above, to adapt, and to fight for a better future. The soldier stood tall, but his mind was still caught in a whirlwind of thoughts. The Queen had shown him a path, one that was different from everything he had known. A path where strength was not measured in combat or power, but in the courage to face the unknown. It was a heavy burden, but he was beginning to accept it. Yet, the Queen wasn't done with him yet. She had given him a glimpse of his potential, but now she would test him. She would push him to his limits and see if he was truly ready to carry humanity's fate. "You have agreed to this challenge, soldier," the Queen said, her voice calm but firm. "But simply agreeing is not enough. To prove you are worthy of this responsibility, you must complete a task." The soldier's chest tightened. A task. He had expected a test, but he hadn't expected it to come so soon. He had barely wrapped his mind around what he had agreed to, and now the Queen was presenting another obstacle. "What kind of task?" he asked, his voice steady despite the nervousness creeping into his mind. The Queen's golden eyes glowed faintly as she stepped closer to him. "A task that will require all of your skills. Not your strength, but your mind, your heart. You will have to make decisions, solve problems, and think beyond what is comfortable for you." The soldier nodded, trying to calm the storm inside him. "I'm ready," he said, though he wasn't entirely sure what that meant. The Queen looked at him, as though assessing his very soul. "You will travel to the heart of this galaxy, to the Council of the Great Powers. There you will represent humanity. You will speak for Earth. You will negotiate on behalf of your species." The words hit him like a wave. The Council of the Great Powers was a gathering of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, beings whose influence shaped the entire universe. And now, the Queen was sending him there, with no experience, no preparation, to speak for humanity. The weight of that task almost made him stumble, but he steadied himself. "You will not have an army behind you. You will not have the safety of your planet. You will be alone, and your only weapon will be your words, your intellect, and your ability to understand others. It will be a test of everything you are." The soldier's mind raced as he imagined the scene. The council was made up of beings who had lived for centuries, some of whom had powers and abilities far beyond anything he could comprehend. He was just one human, with no special gifts, no supernatural powers. How could he stand before them and speak for humanity? "What if I fail?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "What if I can't convince them? What if I am not enough?" The Queen's gaze softened, and for the first time, there was a hint of understanding in her eyes. "Failure is part of the process, soldier. It is not about being perfect. It is about being willing to try, to learn, and to grow. You are human, and that is your strength. You will not be alone in your journey, for the heart of humanity beats in your chest, and that heart is stronger than you realize." The soldier took a deep breath, trying to find his center. He was scared, terrified, even, but deep down, he knew he had no choice but to take this step. The Queen had chosen him for a reason, and now he had to prove her right. "I will do it," he said, his voice firm. "I will face the council, and I will speak for Earth." The Queen nodded, her eyes filled with quiet approval. "Then go, and let humanity's voice be heard." The soldier turned and walked toward the door, his steps steady despite the fear that still gripped his heart. He was about to face the most important challenge of his life, and he wasn't sure if he was ready. But he had no choice. He would go, not as a soldier, but as a representative of humanity. And no matter what happened, he would fight for Earth's place in the galaxy. The journey to the Council of the Great Powers was long and uncertain. The soldier sat in the small, quiet cabin of the ship, staring out at the endless void of space. His thoughts churned in his mind, tangled with the weight of the task ahead. He had never imagined that one day he would stand before the galaxy's most powerful leaders, speaking for all of humanity. But here he was, a lone human, carrying the hopes of his entire species. The pressure was almost unbearable. He was used to battles, used to following orders, but this was different. This wasn't about fighting an enemy. This was about persuading beings far older, far more powerful than anything he could imagine, to see humanity as a force worthy of respect. He ran his fingers through his hair and sighed. What if he wasn't enough? What if they saw humans as nothing more than a primitive, war-hungry race? The galaxy's other species were vast, with advanced technology, incredible powers, and histories stretching back millennia. And here he was, a soldier with no experience in diplomacy, walking into a room filled with beings who could crush him with a thought. His mind raced with doubts, but a small, quiet voice inside him urged him to push them aside. He had made a promise. He had accepted this challenge, and now there was no turning back. He remembered the Queen's words. It is not about being perfect. It is about being willing to try. Maybe she was right. He didn't have to be flawless. He just had to be human. And that, he realized, was enough. The ship's systems beeped, signaling their arrival at the council's meeting place. His heart thudded in his chest, and he stood up, his legs feeling heavier with each step. The door to the ship slid open, revealing a massive structure, an imposing space station that was more of a fortress than anything else. The walls were lined with sleek metallic surfaces, reflecting the glow of distant stars. The soldier could feel the weight of the place, the presence of power, history, and decisions that had shaped the galaxy for centuries. As he stepped off the ship, a representative from the council greeted him. The figure was tall, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. The soldier had never seen anything like it. The being bowed slightly, acknowledging his arrival. "Welcome, human," the representative said, his voice smooth and cold. "The council is waiting for you." The soldier nodded, his mouth dry. He had expected to be nervous, but now that he was here, standing in the presence of these beings, the nerves turned into something else, something more powerful. He wasn't just afraid. He was determined. He had a mission, a purpose, and he was ready to face whatever came next. As they walked through the corridors, the soldier's eyes darted to the various beings in the hall. Some were humanoid, some were not. They all had their own aura, their own sense of power. Some glanced at him with interest, others with disdain, as though they were curious about the human who had somehow earned the Queen's favor. When they finally reached the chamber, he was led inside. The council members were seated at a large circular table, their forms ranging from towering figures to smaller, more delicate beings. At the head of the table was a chair that seemed to radiate authority. The soldier took his place at the center of the room, standing tall despite the growing pressure. A deep silence fell over the room as the council studied him. He could feel their gazes, heavy and unwavering. His hands clenched at his sides, but he kept his composure. The leader of the council, a being with dark, translucent skin and eyes like black holes, spoke first. "You stand here as humanity's voice. Tell us, human, what do you hope to achieve with this meeting?" The soldier took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. He was about to speak for humanity, and it would be his words that would shape their future. He looked around the room, meeting each of their gazes with confidence. "I am here because humanity deserves to be heard. We are not perfect, but we are resilient. We adapt. We fight not just to survive, but to grow, to learn, and to become better. And I ask for the opportunity to prove that we are worthy of being a part of this galaxy, not as conquerors, but as allies." His voice echoed through the room, strong and clear. For the first time in a long while, the soldier felt that maybe, just maybe, humanity was ready for the future. The silence in the room stretched long after the soldier had spoken. The members of the council sat motionless, their eyes focused on him with expressions unreadable. He had just made his plea, standing tall before the galaxy's most powerful beings. And now he had no idea what would come next. His words had been honest, but were they enough? He had spoken for humanity, his species, his people, but the question still lingered in his mind. Would they listen? Would they see past the scars of Earth's past and accept humanity as a true ally in the galaxy? A heavy silence followed. The soldier's heart pounded in his chest. He was aware of every eye in the room, every flicker of movement. Some of the council members seemed deep in thought, their brows furrowed, while others simply stared at him with cold, calculating eyes. Finally, the leader of the council, the being with dark, translucent skin, leaned forward. His voice, when it came, was smooth but stern. "You speak of humanity's resilience, of your people's strength. But what proof do you have that your species will not tear itself apart when given power? Your planet has known war for centuries. Your history is filled with conflict and division." The soldier stood straighter, fighting the unease that crept up his spine. "Yes," he said, his voice unwavering. "We have known war, and we have known division, but we have also known peace, and we are learning. We are evolving. We fight, but we also rebuild. We make mistakes, but we strive to do better." The leader's gaze narrowed. "And yet, you stand here, asking us to trust you. To trust your people. Why should we?" The soldier's mind raced. He didn't have the answers they were looking for. He didn't have centuries of history or powers beyond comprehension. All he had was the truth of what it meant to be human. "Because we are not perfect," he said, his voice growing stronger. "But that is what makes us different. We do not give up. We fight for what is right, even when the odds are against us. And if you give us the chance, we will prove that humanity belongs among the stars." There was a pause, and the soldier wondered if his words had fallen on deaf ears. The pressure in the room felt heavier now, and his thoughts raced. What would they decide? Could he convince them? One of the council members, a tall, insectoid creature with glowing blue eyes, spoke next. "Perhaps there is more to this human than we anticipated. We have seen your potential in battle, but we have never seen a human speak with such conviction, such passion. It is true that your species is unpredictable, but that unpredictability could work in your favor." Another member, a small bird-like alien with a feathered head, added, "But a choice must be made. We cannot afford to give power to a species that is not ready." The soldier felt a surge of panic. They were deciding his fate, humanity's fate, and he wasn't sure if he had done enough. He took a deep breath. This was it, the moment where everything would be decided. Finally, the leader of the council stood, his dark eyes fixed on the soldier. "We have listened, we have debated, and we have come to a decision." The room grew quieter, the tension thick in the air. The soldier's heart thudded in his chest, waiting for the final word. The leader raised his hand, signaling the end of their discussion. "Humanity will be allowed to join the council, but under strict conditions. You will prove your worth over time, and you will not be treated as equals until you have earned it." The soldier's breath caught. He had done it. Humanity had done it. They had been given a chance. The Queen had seen something in him, and now the galaxy would see humanity for what it truly was, a species worth fighting for. "Thank you," the soldier said, his voice filled with gratitude and determination. "We will prove ourselves." The council members nodded, and the weight that had settled on his shoulders began to lift, but only slightly. There was still much to be done, and he knew this was just the beginning of a long journey for both him and humanity. But for the first time, he felt hope, the hope that humanity, despite all its flaws, had a future in the galaxy. The soldier stood at the edge of the council chamber, feeling the weight of their decision settle heavily on his shoulders. He had been given a chance. Humanity had been given a chance. But the journey ahead was far from over. The council's verdict had been clear. Humanity could join the galactic community, but it would have to prove itself, step by step, and earn its place. As the soldier made his way back to his ship, the hum of the station's corridors seemed louder than ever. His mind raced, turning over the conversation with the council. They had given humanity a chance, yes, but it was not a free pass. There would be challenges ahead, tests that would require everything humanity had to offer. When he stepped onto the ship, the doors slid closed behind him, sealing him off from the galaxy outside. He leaned against the wall, his mind still processing everything that had happened. The Queen had placed her trust in him, and now he carried the weight of that trust on his shoulders. He sat down in the pilot's seat, staring at the control panel in front of him. The ship's engines hummed to life, and slowly the vast space station faded into the distance as the ship began its journey back to Earth. His thoughts drifted back to the Queen, her golden eyes full of quiet approval as she had watched him speak before the council. She had believed in him, and that belief had been the spark that led him here. But now, it wasn't just her faith that mattered. It was the faith of humanity itself. As the ship moved through the stars, the soldier felt a growing sense of responsibility. He wasn't just a representative anymore. He was a symbol, the first human to stand on equal ground with the galaxy's most powerful races. Every step he took now would be scrutinized. Every decision would carry weight. The soldier glanced out the window, watching the stars pass by. They were so far away, so distant. Yet in that moment, they didn't seem quite as unreachable. Humanity had made its mark, and now it was time to prove that they deserved to be here. Earth was still a long way from this distant space station, but he knew that when he returned, things would be different. The mission had only just begun. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, perhaps even failures, but it would also be filled with opportunities. The soldier had seen what humanity was capable of in the council chamber. He had seen its strength and determination. And now, the galaxy would see it too. The soldier turned his attention back to the controls, setting a course for Earth. His mission wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. The future of humanity was now tied to the choices he made, to the path he helped pave for those who would follow. He knew there would be moments of doubt, moments when the weight of the galaxy's expectations would feel unbearable. But he also knew that humanity had something that no other species in the galaxy had: a will to change, to grow, and to push forward. As the ship glided through the dark expanse of space, the soldier allowed himself a moment of peace. Humanity had a future, and he had helped make that future possible. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless, and for the first time in a long while, he felt hope. As the soldier's ship approached Earth, the familiar blue and green orb appeared on the view screen. The sight of his home planet filled him with a deep sense of relief, but also a heavy responsibility. The galaxy's leaders had given humanity a chance, but the real work was just beginning. Now it was time to return home, to face his people, and to share the news that Earth's future was no longer uncertain. Humanity had made its mark, but the journey ahead would demand everything they had. The soldier let out a slow breath and steered the ship toward Earth's atmosphere. As the planet's surface grew larger in the viewfinder, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. It had been a whirlwind, a series of unexpected events, but he had made it. And now he had to carry the message that humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. The ship shook slightly as it entered the atmosphere, but the soldier remained calm, his hand steady on the controls. As the ship descended, his thoughts turned to the people he would meet when he landed. He had been chosen to represent humanity, but it was not just him. He was a symbol of all the humans who had ever dreamed of something greater. His words before the council had been more than just a plea. They had been a declaration that humanity was ready to join the greater community of the galaxy. But now, that declaration needed to be backed up by actions, by the unity of his people. As the ship glided over the Earth's surface, he saw the familiar landscapes of mountains, oceans, and cities below. His heart quickened as he neared the landing zone. It wasn't just Earth he was returning to. It was the hope of his entire species. There would be those who doubted, those who questioned whether humanity was truly ready for this new chapter. But he believed, and he had to make others believe too. The landing was smooth, the wheels of the ship gently touching down on the ground. The soldier took one last look at the vast blue sky, then stood and made his way toward the exit. As the hatch opened, he was greeted by a group of Earth's leaders, scientists, military officials, and diplomats. Their faces were a mix of awe and anticipation. They knew what had just happened. They knew the galaxy's eyes were on them now. "Welcome back," one of the leaders said, extending his hand. The soldier shook it, his grip firm. "We have much to discuss," the soldier replied, his voice steady. "But first, let me tell you what we've accomplished. Humanity has earned its place in the galaxy." The leader nodded, his eyes filled with both pride and uncertainty. "And what now? What do we do with this opportunity?" The soldier's gaze softened as he looked at the group. He could see their hopes and fears, their curiosity about what lay ahead. This was a pivotal moment for Earth, for all of humanity. "We move forward," he said simply. "We prove that we are worthy. We show the galaxy that humans are more than just warriors. We are survivors, dreamers, and creators. We have a future, together." The leader nodded again, his eyes now filled with resolve. "Then let's get to work, together." The soldier smiled, feeling the deep sense of pride and relief. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibility. And for the first time in a long while, he felt like humanity was truly on the path to something great.